you are becoming wealthier. Or you could take some of your income and you could put it into the 401k or IRAs or college funds, or build up an emergency fund in the bank so that if something happens with the car or unexpected travel or health expense, that you have some money. So the first place with the wealth building plan is to figure out what resources you have, what household income you have, and figure out what percentage of that, either dollars or in the form of a percentage, that you could allocate to building wealth. And then the next step, of course, would be, what do you want to do? Is it more important to pay down debt, more important to save for retirement? Or other examples would be to save to buy your first home, maybe save money to start a business, to fund college, or, as I mentioned earlier, it could be even just to get some money in the bank so that you're not living purely paycheck to paycheck. So develop a wealth building plan is crucially important. What do you want to talk about next?
I think one of the things that I find very disturbing is that people tend not to even pay attention to where they could be making more money. You mentioned a couple things. I've talked extensively about how nobody should be drinking Starbucks coffee because the cost of a good coffee maker, and you can make yourself a better cup of coffee and save a fortune. But it gets even more severe than that. My son is in college and he works in the office that puts out the grants. And last year, the school had a grant that was available to anybody that applied. Now, any student could have applied. There was no limitation. There was no income check. It was just, if you are a student here, you have a shot at getting this grant based on grades, whatever. Only a handful of people even applied. So they left this money on the table. The few that did apply, because the school was required to use all the money allocated for that grant, those few people got a grant larger than they expected. But so many people missed out on it simply because they didn't apply for it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you think in today's day and age with technology, and you would think there's a greater awareness with this student debt crisis and the increasing cost of education that wouldn't happen today. But that's a pretty telling story. If I could take a moment and just add on to something Chip and I were talking about a moment ago, and you mentioned goals, and I think I was on the show. I know I was on the show a while ago, and we talked about goal setting. And Eric, you were on my Simply Financial podcast, and we talked about goals as well. Is on top of developing a wealth building plan and having goals, one of my hot button issues that I think is overlooked in this discussion is to track your progress. And there's a couple of ways to do this, but my primary and favorite one, and it's done wonders for my wealth building, is to have a net worth statement. Now, that sounds fancy if you're listening and you're not really into finances or a financial geek like maybe the three of us are. It's in a business, it's called a balance sheet. But basically, you add up all of your assets, Chip, the value of a home, 401k, IRA, bank account. You may want to count your car. It's a personal choice. But add up all your assets and total them. Then in the next column, add up all of your debts, total that. And your net worth is calculated by taking your total assets and subtracting out your total debts, and there's your net worth. And, of course, the game of money is to increase your net worth. And what I have found over these last bunch of years, and I wish I would have started this even earlier, given that I've been a certified financial planner for 24 years. Is that right? Yeah, 24 years now, is by tracking it, it helps stay motivated, helps with the goal setting, helps with the wealth building plan, because you see it. It kind of distills everything down to the most basic parts, because there's really only two levers you could pull at most. You could increase your assets, And if you increase your assets, you'll increase your net worth. Or you could decrease your debts. And if you decrease your debts, hopefully getting to zero someday, then you will increase your net worth. And then from there, you could figure out what assets you should be adding to or what debts you should be trying to get rid of and or reduce. And just going through that exercise, maybe once a year, perhaps twice a year, I think is even better. I do it quarterly, but again, I'm a big time geek. I think tracking your progress to see, are you building wealth? Because we all know we're all busy, right? Between work, family, children, donating time like Eric does, it could get hectic and it could get overlooked, but it's too important to get overlooked. By just tracking your progress every so often, I think it does wonders for helping you stay on track and have an awareness of how well you're doing with money. What do you think of that idea, Eric?
Yeah,
I think that's a very important idea. Chip, you wanted to add in?
yeah, basically, I actually have my degree in college in 1976 from Providence College, BC, before computers. And I've really loved accounting and so on. A lot of people don't. However, a basic education where, as you're saying, if people can just read a balance sheet, I'm talking about business owners and also personal balance sheets, because if you're taking out loans, you're going to have to do that anyway. And then your basic income statement, just basically what you spend takes away from what you earn, and that's what's going to increase or decrease uh, what your net worth is, like we're talking about. But a basic understanding of that and putting together a budget like you're talking about, and this is as easy to do as a spreadsheet. I mean, you budget for your normal
Sure.
expenses and your top line, which is really, really important, your salary, your investments, and so on. And you can do a spreadsheet with just monthly things there and plug in the numbers so you can track the trends. I mean, I have a heavy background in cost accounting too, because I ran my dad's manufacturing company. But a basic thing where you can balance your checkbook on a monthly basis, see what you're doing, is really, really important. And I also think that it's really, really important for those of you out there with younger kids or kids in college or whatever. If you can start planning this as a family and learning this and teaching each other that kind of thing, it's going to help out a whole lot. Because obviously, as parents, I'm going to be a grandparent in a couple months, which is awesome. But planning on all of these things is going to help make things a whole lot better as everybody grows up. So basically, a basic knowledge of accounting is really, really important. And as you say, tracking is so important, because if you put a budget together and you don't track it, it's just a wish.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's something that's very important, and something that you touched on is start early. Yeah, my oldest is still in college. He's already started putting money. He's got a stock portfolio because he understands, because I hammered it into him, that starting now, when he's got very little in the way of expenses, he's still living at home, this is the time that he can put that money in. And by the time he's ready to retire, he'll have a good 40, 50 years of interest and, compound interest, as we said earlier.
I agree. I agree. I'll make, though, I know we're all friendly. I'll disagree slightly in this sense, is that at younger ages, I'm more interested in the habit and the foundational teaching as opposed to the amounts of money. Um, it's like anything. If you learn the rules and you have an introduction into these important topics, that sets you up super well. So I wouldn't suggest that you have to save for retirement at 21 to be successful, because lots and lots of people become financially well off, affluent, rich, millionaires, whatever term you want to use, and they don't start at 21. You don't have to start.
Oh,
You could
sure.
start much later than that. But I think at younger ages, what we're talking about is, don't be afraid of the money topic. There's lots of resources out there on the internet and also in the financial services community. This is what I do for clients, and we serve clients across a broad spectrum of age, geography, and economic status. So there is help available, but it's not something you want to shy away from and bury your head in the sand, and at younger ages learning the key principles and just getting a sense of how money works and some of the rules will do wonders for you in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond.
Absolutely. I think, I used my son as an example simply because
Yeah,
he doesn't have the excuse, oh, well, I can't afford it. So if he starts the habit now when
sure.
when it's easier for him, he'll stick with it. I want to switch gears a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
sure we've all seen on television the commercials for credit score monitoring, credit monitoring. How important is it that you are keeping on top of your credit reports?
It is very important. With today's technological world we live in, all of us have lots of data and information that has gotten out there with the different companies that we interact with. There's just almost no way around it. There's the term living off the grid. I mean, you'd have to be insanely disciplined to actually be off the grid in any serious way today. So you have to be able to protect yourself because that information is often accessed by bad actors, not just in the United States, but globally. And even Experian, right? Was it Experian that had
Yes.
yeah. So I mean, even one of the credit bureaus had information stolen from them, which is really incredibly sad when you think about it. So you need to monitor your credit. The rules allow, I believe this is accurate information, that you could get a free credit report once a year from each of the three major credit service bureaus.
Yes.
So you do want to monitor your credit. You could do that through you doing it yourself by getting the free report and keeping tabs on it, or you could take the next step and you could hire a firm to monitor your credit, and they will alert you if there is something they deem unusual with your credit, like new accounts get opened, applications are submitted for credit, that kind of thing. There's also, and this is what we've done in our household, is that you could lock down your credit, and you could tell the credit bureaus, just if anybody inquires, you don't report. You could do that. So that means that if I went to Macy's, for example, and they said, "Do you want to store a credit card?" I wouldn't be able to get to store a credit card because my credit's locked down. But that's another way you could protect yourself. So there's a lot of ways you could do it. But it's worth doing one or more of them to protect your identity, to protect your Social Security number, and to prevent problems, not only where you might lose money, but even if you don't lose money and you're able to get it back, it's an incredible hassle, and it's just a time-consuming hardship. I've seen people, and you guys probably have too, that have gone through.
It really is. And just a quick promotion to our listeners, our next week's podcast, we will be focusing on identity theft with attorney Teresa
Awesome.
DeGray. So we will get much more in depth into that topic. So don't forget to tune in.
I definitely will.
So we're coming up on the end of our time. Chris, what do you think is the one thing that people should start out with in increasing their financial literacy?
Wow, that is a good question. The one thing I would say is to commit to investing a little bit of time consistently to increase your financial IQ. And this is no different than if you wanted to clean up your eating habits, or you wanted to be better at your profession, or if you wanted to get into better shape, is you need to do it consistently. You don't need to spend 25 hours a week, year on, a week after week to become a little bit more financially aware. So I would say the first thing is to commit to yourself that you're going to win with money, and that'll require you to put a little bit of time in consistently, either working with a professional or reading free resources on the web or there's a gazillion books